Hi, Dustin here, and this is my YouTube channel, and something important is happening at this moment. This fellow here is, what's your name?
Frederic
Frederic.
Nadeau.
This is Frederic, and Frederic called me. He found the Hugh friends on online, and he called and explained that he is operating a school in Quebec for hand hewing and things like that. And it has worked out for me because I'm beginning to suffer. I think I'm beginning to suffer from age and need to move fast. So I am giving Fred's school the rest of my broadaxes. I don't know how many there are, maybe 20, maybe less, something. He has not seen them yet. And he's shown up here. He's on his honeymoon. And he's camping tonight, and he has brought with him this crosscut saw, which someone gave him, and I happen to know all about crosscut saws because Norris Batch taught me. I've never used one, and I've never thought of going on to my YouTube channel about a crosscut saw because because there are people who do contests with crosscut saws, and I'm sure they know more than I do. But here's what I know, and Fred doesn't, and probably, and a lot of you don't. So here we go. This is known as a 4-tooth and a raker saw. This is a perforated lance tooth. You'll notice these holes. These holes are the perforations, and the reason those holes are there is because if they were filed, if they were cut through, the teeth would be insufficiently strong and might break. So the idea is when you have worn the saw down to a certain level, then you file out these perforations and your teeth are long again and the saw lasts longer. When a perforated tooth, one of these saws, 4 teeth in the raker, when one of these, if there's the 4 teeth, these are the rakers. The rakers are 6/1000ths shorter than the teeth. 6/1000ths of an inch is the thickness of a matchbook. And all these guys carried matchbooks, of course, once upon a time, so that's how you know that. And of course, there are all kinds of raker gauges and things, and I've got them all, but I don't know where to find them right now, so I'm not going to bother. And when your saw is almost worn out, that is the best time to use it for felling trees, because you can get the wedge in behind it sooner. So that's the old worn out saw is saved for felling trees. And I'm going to say everything twice, I'm sorry. When you sharpen a saw, if the first time when you'd have to deal with an old saw, you have to run a file and make everything, all the teeth the same length. There's a name for it, which I can't remember.
Shaving the saw, no?
Well, you could call it. That's not the name I heard. I'm sure in different parts of the world.
In Quebec, we call it shaving the saw.
Okay, and we call it, I forgot what we called it, but you put the file square on here, and don't do this unless you have to, because it takes a lot out of the saw. But that is making all the teeth the same length. The principle is only the longest teeth cut. So if all the teeth are the same length, then all the teeth cut. See, the saw works better. When you sharpen a saw, the way this works, of course, is the teeth, teeth bend out different ways, and the teeth cut the grooves, and the raker takes out the wood, which curls in here. And when it comes out at the end, it comes out like spaghetti, if your saw is properly sharp and so forth. When you sharpen these teeth, you look down onto the point of the tooth, and you must always see light reflecting off the tooth. When the tooth is perfectly sharp, then no light reflects off the tooth. But if you get the tooth to that point and you take one stroke for good measure, you have shortened the tooth and it will not cut. So you mustn't do that. And as you sharpen the saw, all of these teeth have to come together at the same point. So you are looking down at the teeth and you are seeing light reflect off of the tips of each tooth, and you keep that light reflection the same on all the teeth. And then when you have it down to there's only one file stroke that is needed, or two, of course, to bring it correctly, then you do them all together, and that's it. And then all the teeth are sharp, and all the teeth are the same length, and then they all cut. The rakers tend to be swaged. You take a hammer, they're filed square, you take a hammer and bang the corners just a little bit, and that way when the raker comes in to take out the wood that has been cut by the teeth, it tends to curl better in this area. And that is all I know about perforated tooth, 4-tooth and the raker crosscut saw that I can think of right now. And if with luck, there's some of it that you didn't know, and I'm sure there are quite a few of you who know a whole lot more. Okay, end of saw lecture. Any questions?
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I've heard some of that already, but there's some details about using worn out saws for felling that I've never heard before. I see in Quebec, everyone used these saws in the past, in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s. We find a ton of them, and I've always wondered why they have those worn out, very thin, short tooth saw. But now you just told me.
Yeah.
They cut better because, not they cut better, but you could insert the wedges way beforehand. And all my tree felling that I do with these, I always need to get really, really deep until I can finally put my wedge in. So I'm definitely gonna try your trick there.
Yeah, deep is dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
The sooner you get the wedge in, the better off you are.
Of course.
And so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks
Okay.
very much for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, now we're down to axes. Fred mentioned axe handle making, and Norris Patch of Patch Road, who taught me everything I know, told me how to make the best axe handle the world has ever known. And now I'm going to tell you. Walk downhill. Find a white oak tree about 5 inches in diameter with its roots in the water. Cut it as low as you can. You're going to put the head of the axe. You're going to put the head at the bottom. You're going to put the head at the bottom. That's where the wood is the toughest. Cut it a little longer than your axe handle, because you're going to use the bottom of the tree. That's all you're going to use, and kind of roll it around. There's no such thing as a straight piece of wood, and there'll be a place where the handle's sort of in the grain. It's inevitable. You know, one way or another, you do the best you can, and then you're going to split that piece in half with a saw. You're going to saw it with a rip saw, or whatever you got, of course. These days we use band saws and things. You're going to cut that in half, and you're going to make 2 handles, one out of either side, and each handle is going to be partly sapwood and partly, what do you call it, heartwood, or not heartwood, of course. The heart you're taking out because you're cutting it in half, and partly board wood or regular wood. And I remember Bill Speck, who lived down the street here, who worked with my father. They were scythe men. There was a famous, wealthy diplomat who had I'm off the subject now, who had a farm on Lake Winnipocket not far from here, and he didn't like the marks of the ground-driven sickle bar mower, horse-drawn mower, in his fields, and so he hired the boys to mow by hand with scythes, to scythe by hand. And when men scythe, they go across along the field, one here and one here and one here, and in a pattern, and hand mow the field. And Bill Speck had a scar on his wrist from my father's scythe. my father scythed his way through college. That's how he paid for his education. And at any rate, I'm off the subject here. The fellow's name there's a famous bridge named after him in Boston. His name was Lars Anderson. There are Lars Anderson stories. There was a rock, a big rock in a driveway in a road on his farm on Winnipocket, and he always had hired local guys to do the work there, and so one of these local guys decided that it was time to remove that rock, and he got himself a star drill and started to put a hole in it, because that's how you moved a rock in those days, is you split it into pieces and move the pieces. And I have 4 neighbors who have big machines that can move rocks. The times have changed. Anyway, and Lars Anderson heard that hammering and ran out and stopped him. He said, "I like that rock. I like going over it. You leave that rock." At any rate, so you make your 2 axe handles, and you kind of draw them the way you like them. Here's one I made by Norris's instructions. I don't know what the wood looks like. White oak. It must be white oak. Yeah, I'm sure that's white oak. So here's one I made by his instructions, and this is the French end. He told me, Norris taught me this. If you're going to make a good axe handle, you hang an axe by just like a pendulum, and you drive it sharply on the end with a steel hammer to tighten the head, and this allows you to drive on it without cracking up the handle. And a cracked up handle is going to give you blisters. And if you try to drive on a handle with a hammer, you're going to crack it up. So that's the French end, and I've always made my axe handles this way. I'm not sure I like it. One problem with the French end is it makes the handle that much longer, and it can catch on your pants, and it can catch on your coat, and it can be dangerous. There's a good reason why you have not seen a lot of these on axe handles. There's a controversy here. Now this axe you see, I haven't looked at this axe in about 50 years. Well, not that long, but I had an idea. I was doing a lot of hand hewing, and I had an idea that if I made an axe absolutely straight, with an edge absolutely straight, I could use that axe for scoring. I could stand on the log, and once I learned to bring that axe in absolutely vertical, then my scoring on the beams could be perfect. And it didn't work. What happened was I learned to do it, but the shock that came up through my hands from hitting with so great a surface was intolerable. So this was an experiment of mine that never made it. And here's one way to keep the wedge in, is of course with a piece of wire. And that's done a lot. These handles were made by Simon Lacasse of Hillsborough, New Hampshire, a Frenchman, who I never knew him, but I knew his nephew. And you see how fine they are. This is his 2-foot mark, and he cut 2 cord a day with these axes. Notice there is no bevel on this axe. If you want to really chop, he knew what he was doing. Here's an interesting one. These are all Simons, and this is an interesting one in that you see where it broke. It it broke from here out like that, and he was rewired. He fixed it, and this was a professional guy who just chopped wood all day, and he had all these axes, and I think these were the ones he was not using anymore. He'd worn out, and that's interesting. To me, I'd never seen an axe break like that before. All axes split here. This is where they split, and you wire them, and this is of course taped, and there it is. You see the split. This is the American way, and and this I think has Indian influence. You make things finer and finer and finer, and when they break, you fix them, or you just make another handle, or another pair of snowshoes, or another canoe rib, or whatever it happens to be. But this is a traditional German axe, and you see what happens is, as I said, all axes. You look at these, you can see where they're all cracked in the back. That one cracked in the front, which is amusing. The German point of view was they didn't like the axes doing that, so they made their handles like this. And the Russians do the same thing. This is all over that part of the world. And if you take 9 inches here and keep it thick, why then it doesn't crack. And this is the difference between the European axe and the American axe. And the difference between the European axe and the American axe is the influence of the American Indian, who influenced the French Canadian woodsman who taught Norris Patch, who taught me. And that's the story here. So what are we doing now? Are we done? All right, I think we should probably call it done. Any questions?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I was wondering, you talked about to make the best axe handle. You talked about using green wood so that it would.
Thank
it
you.
would be, yeah, you forgot that little part.
Thank
Tell
you.
me more about that.
Okay, so once you have carved this of green wood, then it is cooked dry under oil. And the oil that's used on all of these handles is used crankcase oil, because it's free. And that's the traditional wood finish for axe handle making. Norris had a tank of used crankcase oil beside his forge. He was a professional blacksmith, farrier, and he kept his forge, a fire in his forge all day, 24/7, and he banked the fire at night and covered it with ashes so he could blow it up in the morning. And he kept his axe handle. He always kept an axe handle he was making. After he carved his axe handle, he'd drop the whole handle right into that tray of motor oil, and would sit there all day. The motor oil was warm, and would sit there all day. And at night, when he banked his fire, he would take it out of the motor oil and he would set it on top of the on top of the forge fire, on top of the ashes. And well, I guess I never heard one burned up, so I guess he knew what he was doing. And he'd look at it and decide which way it went, and keep it straight and this and that. And I remember asking him, how long? He said, well, it won't take any more oil. You look at it in the morning and you see it's dry, there's dry places, you drop it back in. And when it won't take any more oil, you're done. And that was how he made his handles. And my guess is about the same. I remember it's a kind of a funny thing. As I said to him, I was in my early 20s, and I'm an academic. I was an academic, and I came up here disgusted with academia, but I was ignorant, and I made lots of really stupid mistakes. And I remember saying to Norris, I said, Norris, why crankcase oil? And Nora said, well, I've heard that linseed is better, but I've always found crankcase cheaper.